Hi, welcome to That's Ready Mysterious, the show where every bite-sized mystery is rooted in reality. I'm your host, Kelly with an I, leading you through a maze of short stories that are filled with perplexing true mysteries. From missing people to unsolved crimes to eerie coincidences, each episode invites you to step into the unknown and question the ordinary. These tales aren't from fiction, they're stories history hasn't solved. Whether you seek suspense, love curious facts, or are just drawn to stories that linger in your mind, That's Ready Mysterious is your weekly passport into the truly strange, baffling, and unforgettable. Tune in and let the mysteries begin. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the Liu Quan Mummy. The mummy is a papier-mâché statue painted in gold and covered in lacquer. It turned out to be 1,000 years old. It is covered with elaborate decorations that were representative of the Ming Dynasty. That would have been the last time the piece was renovated prior to its move to Europe. The mummy was wearing two sets of robes. The first was a gray lining covered by a carefully carved outer layer. The outer layer has a network of clouds, knitted lines, and flowers. The right sleeve and stomach area have dragons on them to evoke longevity and power. There is a black belt draped over the left shoulder with the ends on the left side of the chest and the back. The back of the mummy is decorated with the Chinese character for Buddha. The mummy wears a philosophy ring on its left hand, surrounded by inscriptions saying, "Disasters turning into auspicious," and "delivering all living creatures from torment." The mummy was most likely on display in a monastery in southeastern China for hundreds of years. It went missing during China's Cultural Revolution, which took place in 1996. That's when it's believed the mummy was stolen and smuggled to Hong Kong. The mummy then changed hands several times before being purchased by Oscar von Overeem. In September of 2014, the Buddhist statue was analyzed by CT scans in Europe. The scientists also sampled some of the bone for DNA testing. Gastroenterologist Renu Vermeda used a specially designed endoscope to take samples from the chest and abdominal cavities. Initially, the scans found a skeleton within the statue. The statue was then brought to Meander Medical Center in Amersfoort, Netherlands. After further study, scientists discovered a full mummy within the statue sitting in the lotus position. The Buddhist master likely died around 1100 between the ages of 30 and 40 years old. During the Song dynasty, which occurred between 960 and 1297, a Buddhist monk named Zhonggong Liu Quan was a skilled doctor. He was known for his goodwill and was credited for helping a local population survive a plague. The monk was believed to have been a part of the Chinese meditation school. For a time, the mummy was on display at Drenthe Museum in the Netherlands. It had been taken there by a private collector for restoration. When the restorer removed the statue from its wooden platform, they found two pillows with Chinese text placed on the bottom. When he took away the pillows, he found the remains of a human. The pillows had been supporting his knees. The mummy was sitting in a rolled-up carpet covered in Chinese text. Radiocarbon dating of the mummy placed it to between the 11th and 12th centuries. The date ranged from 1092 to 1149. It seems likely that the hollow cord lacquer sculpture made 100 years after the monk's deaths was intended to preserve the sacred icon. The broad nose and receding hairline of the outer sculpture indicate that the artist who painted it used a portrait that was available in the 13th century but has since been lost. A 2013 CT scan in Germany performed at Mannheim University Hospital revealed the remains of the monk. After the close of the Drenthe exhibit, the mummy was taken to Meander Medical Center in Amersfoort for the CT scans and endoscopy. There it was discovered that the mummy of Liu Quan was missing its internal organs, which had been replaced by scrolls. The text on the scrolls suggests that Liu Quan may have been worshipped as a Buddha or a teacher who helps bring enlightenment after death. The practice of self-mummification was seen as a path of enlightenment or advanced spiritual state. The process of self-mummification took upwards of a decade. The monk would starve himself for several years before his death. First, the monk had to subsist on a diet of water nuts for 1,000 days. Then, the monk would survive on barriers, tree bark, pine needles, and roots for 1,000 days. This process would reduce body fat and moisture. During this time, the monk would abstain completely from grains and more substantial food. They also ate herbs, cycad nuts, and sesame seeds to stop bacterial growth. After this, they drank a tea made from poisonous tree sap typically used to make a lacquer. This would induce vomiting to eliminate bodily fluids. The body's toxicity would repel insects and permeate the body as embalming fluid. Once this process was complete, the monk was put into a stone tomb that just fit around his body and was given a bamboo tube used for food and air, as well as a bell to indicate the monk was still alive. The monk began chanting the sutra. They were to ring the bell once a day. When the bell stopped ringing, the monk was removed from the tomb for preservation for 1,000 days. Then, the monk was sealed in a tomb for 3 years. When the tomb was opened, if the monk was still intact, it was believed he reached enlightenment. If the body was decomposed, it was believed the monk had fallen short of enlightenment, but he was still honored for having tried. An exorcism was performed, and the decomposing monk was reburied. Some successful monks had shrines built in their honor. This used to be a mostly Japanese practice, but was later undertaken in other areas. The Liu Quan Mummy had his organs removed and replaced with scrolls of paper. Inscribed on these scrolls was ancient Chinese characters. There was also other rotted material that still hasn't been identified. Drent's museum said that the Liu Quan Mummy was an example of self-mummification. More research is needed to determine the meaning of the scrolls. In 2017, a lawsuit was filed in Dutch courts for the return of the mummy to China. The lawsuit said that ownership of the mummy was different from the Swiss private collection story. The plaintiff was the village of Yongsheng in the southeastern Chinese province of Fuzhou. They say that the statue was stolen from the temple in 1995. There are some pictures of the statue within the temple in 1989. The village still has the clothing and crown that the statue originally wore. The defendant in the case was the Dutch collector who bought the statue in 1996. According to the village stories, the monk was named Zhang. He moved to the village with his mother when he was a child during the Song dynasty. He went from cowherd to Buddhist monk to mummy worshipped by the residents. The story does not say that he self-mummified. It says that he was mummified after his death as a show of esteem he was held in. The mummy was moved throughout the village during major festivals and seasonal events so that he could be worshipped. At the time of the lawsuit, no one in the village knew where the mummy was. A Dutch collector had traded it in 2015 and wouldn't say to whom. However, in 2020, the mummy was at the Hungarian National History Museum in Budapest. In December of 2020, the Sanning Intermediate People's Court of Fuzhou Province in China ordered the return of the mummy. The discovery of the mummy was important to China because he was the only Chinese Buddhist mummy available to study in the West. Buddhist monks believe that the mummy is still alive and is just meditating. Over 100 monks have tried self-mummification. Only 24 have been found. How were the organs removed from the Liu Quan mummy before being replaced with the scrolls? Why were they removed? What do you think? Thank you for joining me on our adventure through today's mystery. The stories that That's Ready Mysterious covers are often stranger than fiction. If you enjoyed today's tale, subscribe to make sure you never miss a story that challenges the ordinary and reveals the mysterious. Until next time, keep questioning, and remember the world is full of mysteries yet to be explored.